Welcome to the next. You're sitting here alone with Rob Grant, and tonight I'm thinking about millennial entitledness. This came up because I saw this video post, and it was Dave Portnoy talking about somebody or other, and that's the the gambling dude. You probably know, and if you don't know, it's probably not a big deal. Anyhow, cut into this video of this gal working to sound really smart, talking about how when you're 25, there's some sense of entitlement, whatever else, and that whatever 25-year-olds think they should be making $250,000 a year, and that you have to wait till you're 35 to make that, and all kinds of stuff like this. So that was not terribly remarkable, but what was really remarkable, this was a LinkedIn video, and I've posted some LinkedIn videos before. I get nothing from them. I don't think LinkedIn shows them to anybody. They're not very long necessarily, and they're not so fancy. I'm not cutting in Dave Portnoy into my stuff, but what was really interesting was it had somewhere in the thousands of views and had a ton of comments. And the author was actually responding, it seemed like, to dang near every comment on there. And the level of snark was ridiculous. It was kind of struck me as Stockholm syndrome. And if you haven't heard of that, it's more or less where somebody is taken hostage, and over the course of being hostage to people, they end up becoming friends. This was really the vibe that I got from these comments. She was fighting viciously to defend people not making a living wage, and then kind of like double talking about what living wage actually meant. Oh, well, whatever. If you live in New York City, living wage, blah, blah, blah. It's ridiculous to think that you'd make enough there. It's like, well, hang on a second. People have to be able to live where they work, right? If they're going to have to do in-person work, then they need to be able to live pretty close to the place where they're doing the work. That just makes sense, right? So the thing that was really funny is all these comments are like, well, you just have to suck it up, and, things will change, and, get a roommate, and all the advice that we've heard a million times before. But the insinuation was that you should take whatever you get and be happy about it. Now, there's a couple of splintering thoughts that I have had about this. Just thinking about the folks that I talk to and the folks that I interact with who are looking for work. They're trying really hard to find something that is meaningful. But first and foremost, sometimes they're just looking for something that will pay the bills. The idea that after all this fight, that they shouldn't be able to get something that pays a living wage just strikes me wrong. And here's the thing about living wage. Fine, I get, I understand how economics work. I understand how businesses work. I understand that there's not enough money in the business for the business to pay everybody $1 million. Some businesses there are, but right, as a rule, that might not work. It might not make sense for the business to be in business. Businesses are in business to make money. That's great. We get it. Businesses employ people. These are all great things. Otherwise, we would all have to start our own businesses, and some of us don't want to do that, right? So the distinction is you should be able to get paid enough that you can pay your bills. You can pay for a place to live that doesn't require you to have 5 roommates. You should be able to afford your groceries, regular, healthy food, and 3 meals a day. This makes sense. You should be able to afford to eat out once a week, something like that. You should be able to afford all the household stuff that you need. You should be able to make enough that you're able to pay for a car or transportation if that's what you need, that you can pay for the insurance on whatever home you live in and whatever vehicle you've got. You should be able to have health insurance so that, it cannot pay for anything, but at least if you get something really bad that you're not going to go bankrupt over it. At least, right? That's it at a minimum. And the idea that that's asking for too much at any age is kind of ridiculous to me. And it goes back to, I haven't heard this much recently, but it was a big deal several years ago. People would say stuff like, well, people who flip burgers don't deserve to make $20 an hour. And I'm going to go into corporate, how should I say this? Corporate criticism mode. Well, hang on a second. It depends. If there's no burger flipper, how much does the burger place make? I presume it's quite a bit less than they make than if there's a burger flipper there to flip burgers, yes? Okay, well, if that's the case, it may actually be worth it to that business to pay the burger flipper 20 bucks, maybe even 30 bucks an hour, right? Because the value that they're adding by doing what they do is making sure that the business makes way more than it would have made if they weren't there. And this is a really good way to look at any type of employee, right? How much value are they adding that we wouldn't get if they weren't here? Here's the hard part about all of this. That's going to come down to each individual business being really, really honest with themselves and with their employees about what that role is actually contributing to the bottom line. And none of us is immune to this, right? There are some jobs that are just only worth so much because it only requires so much skill. It only adds so much to the bottom line, right? That's really what it comes down to. It adds so much to the bottom line. Let's keep this strictly dispassionate. Okay, cool. How much money can you make us? That's where it comes down. And some of those are harder to figure out. And in those cases, we kind of have to look at each other, right? Businesses have to look at other businesses and say, what does this look like? The important thing is that an ethical business will do that, and then they'll pay people what they deserve to get paid. How many ethical businesses exist out there who are doing that? That's a tough one, right? I've said this before, and I'm going to say it here. The reason that things are as rough as they are is because people feel like they don't have a choice, and to some degree they don't, right? We all have to work. If enough, well, let me back this up. If all of us quit working right now and all of us defaulted on our mortgages, the banks wouldn't, well, it is 2025. In a typical environment, the banks wouldn't have enough buyers for all of those properties. So it's kind of one of those you can't stop us all things, right? Like if we all just defaulted on our mortgages, if we all quit paying rent, they couldn't evict us all, right? They couldn't come take all of our homes. There wouldn't be anything for them to do. Everything would collapse overnight. The same thing is true of the job market, and this is rough, and I'm sounding like an anarchist here, but I'm not, I promise. I'm just talking about the way things are, and shoot, if somebody wants to have a conversation with me about why I'm wrong, or what this might practically look like, or whether this has been done somewhere, I would be so grateful. That would be such a good time. But here's the punchline. If enough people do it, it's just going to have to work. They won't have a choice. So the same thing goes with the job market, right? Let me use another example because this makes it a little bit easier to understand. Why do cars cost $100,000 for like a Jeep Wagoneer, which is an ugly vehicle? And it's, if you drive one and you love it, I'm sorry for your sense of taste. But they're ugly, right? There's nothing special about them. And maybe the prices have come down a bit, but they were $110,000. At least one of them was, and it's probably super fancy term. It's a Jeep Wagoneer. Give me a break. Okay, why are they $110,000? Because people will pay $110,000 for it. That's it. Yes, stuff costs more. Does it cost double what it cost 10 years ago? Probably not, even with tariffs, with anything else that's going on, which, of course, these companies are finding a way around anyway. I'm getting away from the point. Point is, if nobody bought the $110,000 Jeep Grand Cherokee, I'm sorry, Wagoneer, it's the Wagoneer is the ugly one. Grand Cherokee is probably still a pretty good looking vehicle. So if people wouldn't pay $110,000 for them and they just sat, guess what? The price would have to go down. And if nobody paid $100,000, price would have to go down. Nobody paid $90,000, price would have to go down. So same thing, right? So with the auto market, if everybody just quit buying brand new vehicles, we just all agreed we're not doing it anymore, and we all stopped, the price would go down. And the longer we held out, the more the price would go down. And then, of course, you've got the problem of people. So if you have enough supply to satisfy everybody, then everybody starts buying at a price that's maybe half of what the market was before. But that's because the people mobilized and made it happen. Same thing is true of the job market, right? The big problem with getting paid a fair wage by a business that isn't doing what we talked about earlier, looking at how much value this position is adding to the company's bottom line and honestly assessing it and paying the right amount for that for the person and what they bring. Problem is they'll find somebody else who will do it. Ugh. So all of this frustration for job seekers right now is on top of the frustration of simply finding a job that they even would like to do in the first place, a job where they can even get somebody to call them back, right, to give them an interview, a job where they get past the first, second, third, 18th interview, right, a job that actually exists, that isn't some fake post, a job that is not this is not something different than they said it was, a job where they don't tell you what the salary is and then later they tell you what, like, this wouldn't have even been worth talking about this whole time. So on top of all of that, we've got this other big mess, which is when I get the job, is it going to be enough to pay for everything that I need to pay for to just live as a normal human being? So there's a lot of stuff there. But here's the punchline. We've The answer is not to give in. The answer is not to join up and say, "Oh man, yep, they're right. I just got to eat dirt for, 10 years and then things are going to be all right." That's not the way. And that isn't the way that it used to be. When I first got married, my wife and I each made $8 an hour. It's crazy. Um, but even then, within a year of getting married, still making, 8, maybe $9 an hour or something like that by then, we were still able to buy a house. Now, it was a huge chunk of our income, obviously. It was still, at the time, it was double the amount that it cost to rent. But the overall cost disparity was favorable enough, obviously, that we were able to do it. And there were some programs there to help people who didn't have a ton of income coming in. That wouldn't work today. It doesn't matter if it was double that much. If it was triple that much, it's still not enough, even where I live, to be able to qualify for a loan to buy a home. So the market is a mess. It used to be different not all that long ago, and don't let people tell you differently. If they are, they're lying. And if you'd like to talk it through, I'm definitely here for you. But the market even 10 years ago was different for what you'd get paid, what you could qualify for, how much a house cost. And the really frustrating part of this is the reason that so many of these things have gone up so much is corporate greed. Uh, I shouldn't say that. Corporate greed. Corporations are made up of people. It's greedy people. More and more and more for themselves and taking it away and making the market just unplayable. The game is unplayable for anybody who doesn't have a ton of money. So the answer is either stop being jerks. Probably not real likely. The other answer, unfortunately, is also stop being jerks. But if the market is going to be how it is, then it's really important that businesses say, well, hey, we're making this much money. This role pays this much. We're going to pay you this much so that people are able to afford to live, that they're able to save up enough money to get a down payment so that someday they can qualify for the loan. That's what's going to have to happen. So businesses are in a great position to make this happen. In the meantime, unfortunately, all the trite advice that you've heard 800 million times is the same. There are ways to make a whole ton of money. You might be able to become an influencer if you figure it out. You throw me a bone, I'd be glad for that. But really, it's tough. It's tough to make enough money to buy much of anything right now. So right now, as much as I hate to side with this person who is vehemently trying to justify the way things are, do everything that you can to save up. Having the money to do something when there's something to do is so valuable. I can't tell you what a difference it's made for me over and over again. Doesn't have to be tons of money. It just needs to be enough. Save up any way you can. If you need to get roommates, do that. If you, eat healthy, but, if you got to eat chicken breast and rice and, I don't know what else. Obviously, my wife does an excellent job of taking care of us and making us healthy food, and I can tell you it's not cheap. But if it comes down to it, do those things if you can. I hate that this is the thing, and if you're like me, this was never an option for you. If you can live with your parents for a while, this is a great way to go. There's a couple of reasons behind this. The market is going to change at some point, and I hope that it's soon. I'm grateful to be able to be, you know, a homeowner. But I really hope that there's some kind of crash that brings things down. Now, depending on who you talk to, it yes, it will. No, it won't. Blah blah blah. Whatever else. But it'd be great if it did, because my house is worth less. Shucks. Guess what? So is the house that I'd love to move into, because I'd love to move one more time. Much as I love this house, it would be cool to have just one more, for a forever home. So, with all of that said, the best we can do is our best, and in the meantime, this is frustrating. One of the best ways to live life, and especially to get through times like this, is to connect with other people who get it and who are dealing with or have dealt with these things, or people who have dealt with similar stuff and empathized. Find somebody a little bit older, find somebody who's been through the cycles and is self-aware enough to recognize that this is not a millennial problem. This is not an entitlement problem. This is not the world literally is different than it was when they did the things that they did, so that together you can maybe come to an understanding that's even better, that enriches both of your lives. So, connection, as ever, is what we were created for. It is what brings fulfillment to life. It is one of the things that makes life worth living. So, that's my encouragement to you. You can find it in a lot of ways. I highly encourage you to do it in real life as much as you can, at least once a month. Get together, as the kids say, touch grass, go talk to somebody, go meet up with somebody. But in the meantime, LinkedIn, you can do it. We've got Zoom, right? We've got phones. If you can believe it, you can actually call people on those things. I know it's one of those things you forget. Wow, yeah, that is a thing. We got email. Shoot, if you can believe that antiquated system still exists. And then, hey, all else fails, you got Pony Express. Anyway, talk to somebody. Make sure that you are staying connected, because things are going to change. And in the meantime, while they suck a whole lot less when you know you've got somebody else who understands, who is either dealing with or has dealt with the same things you are, and or cares enough about you and is self-aware enough to recognize your dreams and desires for what they are, which is worthy stuff. So, I hope this makes you feel a little bit more seen, a little bit more heard, a little bit more understood. I'd be thrilled if you subscribed so you can catch our next episode when it drops. I say our next episode because it'll be me and another cool person. I don't know yet. That's part of the fun of this. I'm having a blast meeting people and sharing things with you, but this was the message that I wanted to share with you today. So hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. I will do my best to bring you more of connection and belonging and meaning and practical ways that you can help enjoy your life in the midst of whatever the job search is doing to you right now, or the struggle of trying to create meaning in your workplace is. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you soon.